The problem is these frameworks are so complex, right? There's so many moving parts. And I'll tell you right now, if you start doing as a CISO, welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome to this week's edition of Life of a CISO with yours truly, Dr. Eric Cole, where I have one goal, one objective, and that is to make you a world-class CISO. So I hope you're ready to be world-class. All right, if you don't want to be world-class, I love you, I respect you, I wish you all the best, but this is probably not the right podcast for you, right? Because I'm going to probably frustrate you, annoy you, because if you like status quo, if you don't want to change, if you think that you're doing everything correct and you're not open to adapting, adjusting, or modifying your behavior, like I said, I wish you all the best, right? But this is probably not the podcast for you. This is not a rah-rah, you're awesome podcast, which, by the way, you are awesome, and I am your biggest fan, so I will rah-rah you. But the point is, this is about change, thinking differently, adapting, and taking action. It's all about becoming world-class. And if you're world-class, I want to make you super world-class. And if you're super world-class, I want to make you super deluxe world-class. To me, the amazing thing about life is you want to always be growing, always pushing, always going to that next level. You want to be obsessed with optimization. You want to be obsessed with how you use your time. This, all podcasts can be listened to independently. So if this is your first one or you're listening to them out of order, absolutely can get a lot out of it. But both in sort of focus, mindset, advice, and also on the CISO strategy side. Coincidentally, both of these independent, but building on last week. So last week we talked about time, scheduling, breaking up your days, optimization. And today I really want to talk about focus, removing distractions. Because really, if you look at everybody has the same amount of time, the difference is how you use it. The more you can stay focused and optimized and remove distractions, the more you can become world class. And it's funny how little seamless, innocent things can add up to huge distractions. For example, this was something that it sort of took me by surprise when I go in and I look at screen time. You can actually, with most Apple or Android devices, it'll tell you how much screen time you spent on which apps. And in the past, I didn't realize it, but I was spending a lot of time because 2 minutes doesn't seem like a lot. It's 120 seconds. Eric, what's the big deal? I took a little break. I checked social media for 2 minutes. Now, the problem is you think it's 2 minutes and it's really 5. Right? Because it's meant to be addicted. Right? Social media is a virtual drug that's meant to addict you so you keep watching it. Because that's how social media make money, by views. Right? The ads is how they ultimately make money. So they want it to be addictive content. But let's play along that it really is only 2 minutes, which I don't think so, but let's say it is. Okay, so 2 minutes, not a big deal. But you do it 5 times a day. So now it's 10 minutes a day. Okay, that doesn't seem like that big a deal. But now that's 70 minutes a week. So now we're over an hour, right? Then it's over 4 hours a month, and it's over 48 or over 50 hours a year. That's a week. Just in 1 year, you lost an entire week to something that was a little 2 minutes, right? So it does matter, right? It's compound. The most valuable thing on investments is compound interest. One of the most valuable things, if you use it correctly, is compound time. One of the most detrimental things is compound time if you don't use it carefully. And then I won't even get started on TV. Once again, many people get very angry, mad at me. Eric, people need to relax. People need to chill out in the evening. I just worked 9 hours and I deserve to sit on TV and watch. Yes. But then don't come to me and complain that you're not world class. Because let's face it. And once again, I love you, so don't get mad at me, right? Some people are going to get mad at me. World class people don't watch 2 hours of TV a night. They just don't, right? They're going to be reading or learning or spending time with the family or helping their kids with homework or exercising or doing other factors there. They just don't do that, right? And imagine we did our 2 minutes. What if we do 2 hours, right? Just do the math on that one. That adds up to a lot of wasted time. Now, just so we're clear, I enjoy a good movie like The Next, right? I believe that it's okay to reward and have fun, right? I know some of you probably don't think so. I'm a fun guy, right? I like to have fun. But I plan it, right? So full disclosure, all the family is traveling, so I was by myself. This is a Saturday morning, by the way. And yes, I'm in the office. I love it. But yeah, last night I made a decision. And it was planned. It was a decision. I looked forward to it. I enjoyed every minute of it. It was totally awesome. But I watched a movie last night. It was a movie I wanted to see. It was an action-adventure movie. It's awesome, right? Enjoyed it. Had a great time. Finished it. Did some meditation and went to bed. So I'm not saying you can't have fun. I'm not saying you can't make deliberate action to watch something if you enjoy it. But very often, we use those things as a distraction because we don't know what to do. Or we've developed habits. Eric, my parents came home from work and watched TV for 2 hours. And I've just, for the last 20 years, that's what I've always done, right? So it's a habit that's built in. But once again, how could you use that time differently? How could you use that optimize to get towards your goal? And I'll give you my favorite story. If you've been listening to me for a while, if you've heard it a few times, but it's just a great way, non-judgmental, to just, are you focused and optimized? And once again, with all my stories and examples, they're all based, I always say, real world events. But because I love them so much, I go for memory. I'll take some poetic liberties. So if I don't say this, people always go, well, Eric, that wasn't factually correct. It was actually this, not that. So this is a fictional story based on real life events, right? So this way, if I get a data point wrong, you'll give me some forgiveness on that front. But going in to the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, Australia, the rowing team, the crew team for the UK, basically decided to use a different strategy. It was very, very competitive going into Sydney, Australia. So they had every one of their rowers try out on single boat. And then what they did is they took the fastest time and they put them in the single. They took the next fastest and put those people in the double. They took the next, put them in a quad, the next, put them in I think it was 6-person. So the 6-person boat crew basically knew that they weren't the best, right? Because the British team wasn't shy about how they did this. So they had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because they didn't make singles, they didn't make doubles. So they were finally, this was the final selection, pretty low on the list at that point. Now still elite, right? But they had a chip on their shoulder. So they got together 2 years before the Sydney Olympics when they were picked in 1998. And they decided there was only one outcome: gold. If they did not win gold, they failed. They didn't want a medal. They didn't want a silver, They didn't want a bronze, right? It was gold. That was their outcome. That was what they decided. And then they put a very interesting system in place. Every decision they made for 2 years was driven by a simple question. Will it make the boat go faster? Because they recognize it's okay to say we're going to win gold. It's okay to say that's the only option. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they had to have the fastest boat on the water because that's how you win gold. So they needed to have the fastest boat. So that's how they came up with that simple question. So for 2 years, they would wake up in the morning and they would say, okay, it's rainy, it's cold, it's not a great day outside. Should I go for a run? Will it make the boat go faster? If I'm in better shape, it absolutely would. You go for the run. Should I go and have pizza with my friends for lunch? Will that make the boat go faster? Well, it's going to make me a little sluggish. It's probably going to put on weight. It's probably not going to let me be optimized. No, it won't, so they don't do it. And literally, right, all their decisions were driven by a simple question. Will it make the boat go faster? So that's one of the things I always encourage my students, my team, my friends, family, and myself. What is your outcome? Now, I use Will It Make the Boat Go Faster because it's great, and the book is awesome, by the way. Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? Highly recommend you reading that. But the point is, the boat go faster means, will it help you better achieve your goal? Will it get you closer to achieving the goal? So when I get up in the morning and I plan out my day, when I'm going to go in and make decisions, will it make the boat go faster? Yes, it will. I do it. And once again, just to show you the logic, is I've been working the last 4 weekends. Now, I'm always in the office and weekends. I like to do a little work, but I call that fun. But when I say the last 4 weekends, is I was actually either meeting with clients all day, doing actual depositions, not just depo prep, but actual depositions, or writing full reports. And if you've ever done a deposition, it is tiring, right? You are on the clock for 7 hours, which means with breaks, it's about 10 hours, and you are grilled by opposing counsel. So I do great. I've been doing my exercise, but it's been nonstop for almost 28 days. And yes, even the amazing Eric gets tired, right? And you do need breaks. You do need to do fun. So I was going into this weekend where I actually don't have any depots or anything going on. And I was getting a little tired and just needed to clear my mind. So I asked myself yesterday, will watching a movie help the boat go faster? And in this case, the answer was yes. I needed to relax. I needed to just disconnect from work. I needed to just, I really get into movies. Yeah, I'm that guy who's like, my kids don't like, this is why I love all the virtual stuff, because I can watch it from home. And my kids don't like going to movies with me because I'm the guy that's screaming and cheering and everyone thinks is nuts, right? Which, if you know me, I probably am, but that's okay. So, but the point is, it was perfect. It absolutely helped my boat go faster. I recharged, I relaxed, I disconnected. Now, if watching a movie every night, is that going to make the boat go faster? Well, no, because if I'm doing great and had a lighter week or a lighter day and I'm feeling good, and I could either exercise or read a book or work on an online course or learn something new, that ultimately is going to be better for making the boat go faster. So that's just something to keep in mind as a world-class CISO, is when you're planning your day, both work and non-work, weekends and weekdays, just always ask that simple question. Will this make the boat go faster? Will this help me get to my ultimate outcome? Will this help me accomplish my end goal? And if the answer is no, multiple times or multiple days in a row, you need to think about that. You need to re-examine. And just so we're clear, there will sometimes be cases where you make exceptions. This week with my daughter, she really wanted, we have a favorite pizza place. I'm from New York, and it's New York style pizza. And she really wanted to go there. Now, is spending time with my daughter making the boat go faster? Absolutely. That's one of my key goals, is to be the best dad out there. So it absolutely is. Is eating pizza, I'm in the middle of a cut, right? I'm down to 11% body fat, really pushing it hard. Is eating pizza really going to make the boat go faster? No. But it was an exception. I didn't want to be right? It is awesome pizza. Now, normally, during normal steaks, I would probably have 3 pieces because it's awesome pizza. So instead, I ate slower and just really enjoyed 1 slice of pizza. But that, if we really were going to be honest with, is a no. However, there was a lot more yeses during the day, so that's okay. I'm not saying, we're not looking for perfection here, right? There's going to be exceptions. But if you're getting to a point, and you'll notice, because whenever you're getting sluggish or down or depressed or just frustrated or not enjoying life as much, I can guarantee that it's because when you ask the question, will it make the boat go faster? There's a lot more no's than yeses. So I can tell when I've answered no more than yes, because I can tell how I feel and how I do that. So if I start just getting a little down or feeling a little off, I'll just go in and start consciously asking the question more and just get more yeses. And it's a funny thing. When you get more yeses than no's, all of a sudden you start feeling better. All of a sudden you start getting world class. So it's just a great, simple, but very powerful optimization visibility tool on will it make your boat go faster. Then on the strategy, the CISO, the integrating with the business side, once again, you can listen to this independently, but this section also coincidentally sort of builds on last week's episode. Last week's episode, we talked about having the one-pager. All world-class CISOs have a one-pager. And it's 3 columns. What are the critical assets? What are the threats to the critical assets? What are the vulnerabilities that would allow those threats to cause harm to our critical assets or business processes? And you have around 5 in each column. But let's delve a little bit more into threats. I know it overwhelms organizations and executives and CISOs with all the different threats that are out there. And everybody talks about frameworks. Right? Oh, we need to put a framework in place at our business. The problem is these frameworks are so complex, right? There's so many moving parts. And I'll tell you right now, if you start doing as a CISO executive briefings based on, and I love the standards, don't get me wrong, the ISO or the NIST or the ANSI or any of those, but those are technical, tactical for your team. You're not going to present that to the executives, right? There's way too much going on there, right? There's way too many moving parts on that stuff. You don't want to do that. So one of what I call my special superpowers that I do really well is create very strategic, simplified roadmaps or simplified areas to focus on for a business. So with threats, let's really break it down. If we really want to break down threats, we don't need an 800 or 1,000-page framework. There's really just a handful of threats. There could be threats to servers. Somebody can break into a server. Somebody can break in to a client system. Somebody could break in to a vendor. Or somebody could compromise an employee, an insider threat. So really at a high level, there's really 4 main threats. Now you could say, oh, but Eric, what about application threats? And so those are all, you don't break in to an application. You break into a server that's running an application. Or you break into a client that's running an application. or you break into a vendor that's running an application. Right? Applications just don't exist. Right? An application runs on hardware or components. So once again, we're going root cause. Now, yes, if we wanted to start adding in all those vectors, that's where it gets so complex. But ultimately, if somebody is going to cause harm or damage to your organization, they're going to have to compromise a server, compromise a client, compromise a vendor, or compromise an insider in your organization. Now, the insider is really much more of an HR issue. Right? If somebody is going to be recruited, right, in your organization, and they're going to copy data on a USB, or they're going to steal documents or things like that, because typically they have access to do their job, right? That's often something on HR. Now, yes, you could put things in place to do basic protection, but really when you're looking at threats, and that one is sort of different. That's an internal threat. What we're really talking about with CISOs and like what's happening with cyber war and others are really on the external threats. So for this discussion, I'm going to focus on external. Internal, we can discuss another time on these podcasts because it's a complex area. So we're going to focus on external, which really means from a CISO standpoint and perspective, there's three main threats you want to monitor. Now, there's sub-threats and sub-components, but when you talk to executives, I like keeping it simple. So you talk to the executive and say, okay, there's three main threats. Somebody can compromise a server, somebody can compromise a client, somebody can compromise a vendor. And then what are the vulnerabilities that would allow those to happen? Now, once again, if we look at most attacks, if we gather the data that's out there, we now start getting very predictable, simplified models that we can implement within our business. So on a server, servers get compromised because of three things. The server is missing patches. The server contains critical data. And the data is not properly encrypted. Now, what amplifies that threat is when those things exist on external public-facing servers. So our first area of focus for a CISO that we want to evaluate and look at for our business is what external servers does our business have? External servers are servers that are directly accessible from the internet, that they're visible, and they are a big exposure. So two simple rules as a CISO. We know and understand external threats are higher risk, so we treat them differently than internal servers. And we go in and say, okay, any external server must always follow two rules. They must always be fully patched, and they never contain critical data. Now, I know those sound simple, but here's the wild thing. If those two things were done, most of the data breaches you've heard about, and many that you haven't heard about, would not have happened. Almost all data breaches happen today because you have servers visible from the internet, missing patches containing critical data that's not properly encrypted. So if we just go in and say, we know all our external systems, we make sure they're fully patched, and we make sure they don't contain critical data, we've taken away the vector. We've removed the vulnerabilities that are utilized. For the external server attacks that are happening today, there are two vulnerabilities that must coexist. There must be missing patches, and there must be data not properly encrypted. Now, we could technically just take away one. So we could go in and say, just no data on external systems, and who cares if they're patched, or patch systems, and who cares about data. But why not do both? Why not have that double level of protection? So now from a CISO, you're focused at a high level on your scorecard of systems visible from the internet, making sure they're patched and making sure they don't contain critical data. Then for internal servers, you also want to then focus in on patching. But really the fundamental issue today that nobody likes talking about, but's important to, is the real root cause, foundational reason why data gets compromised today is because the encryption is not implemented correctly. Just think about this. If crypto was done correctly and the data was truly encrypted and the keys were properly protected, who cares if the server's missing patches and who cares if the data's on external systems? Because somebody would break in, they'd get into the server and they'd get encrypted data. They can't decrypt it. It's useless. But the problem that nobody wants to talk about, the root cause problem, is we're encrypting all of our data with the same keys, and we're storing those keys plain text on the system. And once again, this is one of those things I always tell people, if you wouldn't do it in the real world, don't do it in cyberspace. We tend to lose common sense when we get to cyberspace. I'll give you an example. What if you go to check into a hotel and you check in and they say, you're in room 305. So you say, great. You say, can I have the room key? And they say, oh, no. To make it easy, we've taped the room key to the outside of your door. So you just go to your door, the key will be taped there, and you can go in. And you're like, I don't like this, but I'll play along. But then you have another question. You say, but what if somebody took the key? What if the key fell off? What if the key is not on my door? Oh, it's okay. All the doors have the same key, and all the keys are taped outside the door. So if your key is missing, just take anyone else's key from any other door, and it will open up your room. You would not stay there, right? That's insanity. That's nuts. Yet that's what's being done in a lot of businesses. Because we don't have good cryptographic solutions available, they're going in and checking a box, because most of the regulation, here's the crazy part, most regulation says you must encrypt critical data. You must encrypt patient healthcare. You must encrypt personally identifiable information. It doesn't say how. So technically, encrypting your data with the same key and storing it plain text on the server meets the regulations, but it doesn't protect the data. So if you want to be world-class CISOs address the encryption problem. World-class CISOs go root cause. World-class CISOs make sure that all their data is encrypted with different keys, and the keys are stored on a separate server. It sounds simple, but it really is critical. Now, implementation, of course, is harder to re-encrypt data, but world-class CISOs focus in on that. Then we move to clients. Really on clients, the big vulnerability is attachments and embedded links in email. That is pretty much the major issue today. Now, yes, there could be other vectors and other problems, but the main source of attack, the main way an attacker is going to target, break into a client, and access the rest of the network is because of attachments and embedded links. So what if we go in and we start putting in ways to securely exchange documents, and we use email what it was intended for, which was email, not document transfer. So once again, cultural change is here, but I know many companies that are doing this, especially now with the working from home and the bigger exposure factor. World-class CISOs implement email, corporate email, that doesn't allow embedded links or attachments. So once again, this isn't rocket science, right? But it's understanding core foundational threats. And then we come down to third-party vendors, and this one crosses a lot of the lines, even gets into some of the insider threat. First and foremost, segmentation, limit and control access, least privilege, only give a vendor access it needs to do its job. So now any third-party vendor goes through a firewall, is segmented, and only is given access to the data they need. Do you realize when solar winds hit and caused all that damage, 90% of the damage was from servers that the SolarWinds software didn't need? But what these companies did is they blindly trusted vendors. They plopped the SolarWinds on their network and allowed it access to everything, even though it didn't need it. And that's what ultimately caused the damage. So if we did segmentation and least privilege. So world-class CISO, make sure your systems are patched. Make sure external systems don't contain critical data. Make sure all your data is properly encrypted, unique keys stored on a separate server. Limit attachments and embedded links in email. And any third-party systems go through a firewall segmented, and always implement least privilege, giving the least amount of access needed to do their job. And here's the wild thing. That's a framework that executives understand. That's a framework that's straightforward to measure. And that's a framework that if companies had in place, almost all of the major threats that we've seen would not have happened. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Life of a CISO. Look forward to seeing you next week, and be world class.